We begin day 47 of our journey through the Bible by looking at the arrangement of how Israel was camped together as they journeyed there through the desert for those 40 years. The point is to notice, of course, that the tabernacle, this very special place of worship, was to be right at the center of the people. It was to be equally accessible to the people at all times. It was at the heart of their whole community and their life together. Now, outside that gate of the tabernacle was the place where Moses and Aaron and the priestly sons of Aaron camped. They were the representatives of Yahweh, and they were always available to those who needed access to God. The Kohathites, the Gershonites, the Merarites, I like to call them Smith, Johnson, and Williams, something easier for me to say, but they were the three chief families of the Levites. These were special people who were responsible for the tabernacle. They were charged with its care and moving it from place to place. Each of the families had a special responsibility, a special assignment related to the tabernacle. For example, the Kohathites were charged with the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, altars, sacred vessels, and the screen. And so whenever the tabernacle was to be moved, the Kohathite men carried these holy objects on poles, and they were placed upon their shoulders. I think the lesson for us is that all of us are called to serve the Lord, none more or less than the others. But God does give specific assignments and specific callings to us, some for our whole life, some for more limited, and then He gives us another calling, another place. But God has put that responsibility of Christian work on a variety of people's shoulders. And certainly even today in our churches, He calls some to serve in unique ways on the staff of churches. And that has its connections back here all the way to the Old Testament. Something else I would like you to see today is that the feast of the sacred calendar. Leviticus chapter 23 talks about 7 special festivals that are ordained by God. They begin the year with the Passover. That reminds us, of course, of the way Christ delivered us from sin's bondage. It's followed by the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's a picture of Christ and His body, the church. Then there's the Day of the First Fruits that follows it. It's celebrated on a Sunday. Doesn't seem strange to us, but that for an Old Testament person would seem like a very unusual day. Buried within this feast was a prophecy, a foretelling of the resurrection of Christ, who would be resurrected on the first day of the week, who the New Testament says is the first fruit of those who will be resurrected because of Calvary. And then the Feast of Weeks was also on a Sunday. It was on this day that Pentecost takes place in Jerusalem, and the church is born. The church that would forever from that point make Sunday its day of worship. That's followed by the Day of Trumpets, which is a signal that Christ is coming back. Then there's the Day of Atonement. This is the one day that's a fast day, not a feasting, but a fasting. It is, of course, a reminder annually of the need for sorrow for sin and confession built in the lives of the people. And then the last one is the Feast of the Tabernacles. It surely is a picture of, among other things, the coming full and total reign of Christ in all the world. Zechariah 14:16 couples it with these kind of events. He says, "And the survivors of all the nations that have attacked Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, and to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles." The scripture portion I want to read today is from Hebrews, again, chapter 10. I begin today with verse 8. When He said above, "You have neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings and burnt offerings and sin offerings," these are offered according to the law. Then He added, "Behold, I have come to do your will." He does away with the first in order to establish the second. And by that will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. And every priest stands daily at his service, offering repeatedly the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But when Christ had offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, He sat down at the right hand of God, waiting from that time until His enemies should be made a footstool for His feet. For by a single offering He has perfected for all time those who are being sanctified.